you hear me, Trent? Okay, fantastic. Here we go.
All right.
So, all right. So I think today we get to talk about 2026 spring products, even though it's still fall. People are still kind of planting wheat, maybe in our area, right?
There's still a little bit of wheat being planted. Yep, right to the end. Um,
Okay.
but but this fall has given us a pretty wide window, which is uncommon for us. Very nice weather. Split up a little bit with some moisture early on. A lot of fall growth, especially in the early planted wheat. So I mean, we have a lot of green wheat fields in the fall for a change, which we did not have that luxury last year. So it's pretty nice to see, and sets us up pretty good for yield potential for next spring. Along with the forages, the triticales, the forage wheats, things like that. I mean, we're getting grazable growth here in the fall, and setting us up for some good food production, feed production in the spring. So it's really good to see love falls like this, taking some time up for corn to dry down. I mean, typically middle of November, we don't see a lot of corn harvest happening, and we're still seeing that right now because it's not drying down. But again, that's to me, that's a pretty good sign that the corn is healthy, the moisture was there. Um, a bigger corn crop takes a little longer to dry down. So it's pretty good to see, pretty good yield performance, and gets us pretty excited to talk about next year.
I guess that's what we're here for then. So as we think about 2026 and corn and soybeans in particular, I know you've been working through product lineup with all the different suppliers and everything. And so let's just dive right in, I think, and talk about the top hybrids and varieties that you think your customers should be thinking about this year. So looks like the top of the list, at least the start of my list, is DeKalb,
Mm-hmm.
DKC 4785. Is that how you say
Yes.
it?
Yeah, I just call it 4785.
Okay.
Yeah, technically it's DKC, but we talk about it just the number. And that's kind of the double-edged sword that we have, talking about all the companies that we represent. It gives us a lot of options. It gives us a lot of tailor-made solutions for each individual farm. Obviously, there's a lot of differences in this part of the world on who's doing what with their corn in specific. But because of that, it gives us a lot of options too that we kind of have to manage through. And we're going to kind of talk about, I'm kind of calling, hopefully it sticks, the top shelf products. Kind of the ones we see are kind of the best in every scenario. It makes your head spin the amount of options we do have, just within one company, not to mention 3 to 4. So, but from what we've seen this fall, from a yield stability standpoint, the DeKalb seems to be the most consistent. Not the first year that's happened. We really like their products. We really picked a few out that really work in this area. And so, kind of talk early to late. Obviously, for us, 97 is starting to be kind of tagged as an earlier maturity. A few years ago, that was kind of the mid range, and now we're seeing that maturity push a little more, especially these late falls. Gives us that option to utilize that whole growing season with a little longer maturity. But 4785 is one. I'll probably say this quite a bit, that most of these are very proven. This is not the first year out of the gate with a lot of these, and they've proven themselves in tough years. They've proven themselves in good years, and 4785 is an example of that. It's one that's not a corn that's overly tall, but it's pretty drought hardiness and drought tolerance is something I'm going to say quite a bit about these hybrids. That's the ones we pick, and that's definitely a characteristic that we have to pay very close attention to, is drought hardiness, and 4785 kind of sticks out in that aspect. All while not really sacrificing yield. So if we're going to push a little bit on the earlier side, maybe we're delayed planting, we wanted 105, 108 day, but we got delayed. This is definitely one of our first choices to pull off the shelf if we have to switch up and early up our maturities for that. It's a good place to start. It's really good in that 97 day. But I think from here on out, as we increase in maturity, we start to see kind of our yield potential keep going.
Does it also have good stalks and roots?
Everything's got good stalks, good roots, excels well under high management. They all do that. Yep, that's the
Do they do well
lovely.
with more water too?
Yeah, yeah. Now you're starting to sound like a seed guide. They're all good, nothing bad about them. Everyone is
All
so
right.
good.
Well, this is over then. Nope, that's
Yeah,
great. All right, so the next one is 9888.
yeah. And that's side note. That's kind of the reason we do this. It's the reason we make our own product guide, because we don't want to cover up, the potential of an issue. There is not a perfect hybrid in our lineup. The perfect hybrid does not exist. So we have to be aware of that. And if there's something we need to watch out for, we know about it ahead of time. Some of these you'll hear me say needs to be harvested earlier than letting it stay in the field. The corn is really good. The yield potential is there. You just need to get out and get it. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this. So yeah, 09888, new one came to us last year. This is a VT4. So this is a new trait platform out of the Bayer traits. So we're used to triple stack, double stack, things like that. So they tag this one VT4. So we basically have Tricepta above ground, which is our double pro trait, plus the Viptera traits. We have excellent dual protected against earworm and everything above ground. And then it gives us that RNAi rootworm technologies, a technology that's very hard to develop resistance to, like we saw with a lot of our older smart stacks and other rootworm traits. And so this one, they're starting to pair with their other traits to kind of make that resistance ability a lot lower. So some of these, all they put in was the RNAi, not mRNA, RNAi rootworm technology. So that's what 09888 has. We noticed this one where we saw some Goss's wilt. So we had some hailstorms go through this summer, prime for Goss's wilt to get incorporated into the plant. And there's definitely differences in hybrids that have natural resistance to Goss's wilt and others that don't. And this one really excelled in that area. That gets us pretty excited about that one. Seen it in some pretty tough ground, some good ground. And one we really like from a health standpoint, especially a Goss's wilt standpoint. And then if you're having corn on corn or even a corn bean rotation, where I think we're starting to see some of that extended diapause with our rootworm. They're laying their eggs, they're not hatching for an entire year, they're hatching that next year into that corn crops. It gives us that protection. The downfall of that is you have to pay more. It's an added cost that we might necessarily not need. But there's another VT4 that we're going to talk about from DeKalb's lineup that we feel, corn on corn or not, it's worth the price of admission. Again, on the earlier side, 09888, we really like the looks of.
You sound like you know what you're talking about, so that's good.
Make it all up.
No. All right, how about 09911?
Yep. So now we're starting to get kind of into the meat of things. Again, this one is kind of, we saw again Goss's wilt with 10135 that we're going to talk about in a little bit that maybe isn't the best in natural defense against Goss's wilt. 09911 picks up that. So it's still kind of that blocky, kind of DeKalb style beer can, short, squatty, big kernel ear. We noticed this one 2 years ago. We had a really nice plot here on the highway outside of town. This one hung right with the 104, 105 days type deal. So it's got a lot of yield potential for a 99 day, good natural disease resistance. Again, not a super tall plant. So it's, it's something that it's going to pack its groceries into the ear versus trying to feed a big tall plant, which we really like. And then again, kernel depth and kernel size, we pick up some test weight and some yield that way. So it's a really good option if we know or we've seen Goss's wilt pressure, we don't really want to pay the VT4 price. That's where this one fits in really well.
Perfect. All right. You just mentioned this next one, 10135.
Yeah, this is, and ask anybody from DeKalb. I mean, this one and 10535 came out a couple years ago. Probably the most anticipated release of a DeKalb hybrid that they've had in recent memory, and it's lived up to its name. Super strong. And when yields are good, it's great. When yields are tough, it's good. So it hangs in there in the tough times. It hangs in there in low population. It hangs in there when you got some management and you get lucky and get some rain, it can really push yield. So really like the looks of it, but it is its Achilles heel that it's not very great on Goss's wilt. So you get a little bit of a hailstorm, you get something coming in. Obviously, we're getting Goss's wilt usually gets transported by wind, and we get plenty of southerly winds coming to us from all the cornfields of Nebraska and everywhere else getting blown in. So that's definitely a little bit of a concern with it from that standpoint. But year in and year out, it's very isolated issues where we've seen that hang up. And so 98% of the time, that's never a cause for concern, and then its yield is unmatched, and that relative maturity as well as a few day lengths above it.
Sounds like a fan favorite.
It's definitely our leader. If somebody wants a 100-ish day hybrid, I mean that's the first one I'll bring up every time.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. Next is 5192.
Yep, 5192. So a lot of these also come as smart stacks. Don't have a ton of corn on corn in our area, but where it is, a lot of these hybrids do have the same hybrid, just in a different trait platform. So 10135 has a 10133 smart stack option. 92 has a 5191 smart stack option. This one is kind of an older dog. It's going to be kind of an older dog in their lineup. Tried and true, never let you down. Might not win the yield contest, but never loses type deal. It's just very consistent. That I think in a perfect world where rain, temperature, everything works great, product like 10135 is gonna have a higher ceiling than 5192, but 5192 is just something, the steady eddy that we can always rely on. Really likes our western environment, really likes our lower population, has some heat tolerance to it. One that's not very pretty come combining time, which that's kind of a DeKalb trait, a little bit, tops fall off, things like that. So it's kind of got that. You got to be prepared for that look when you get in and combine it, but it never usually fails us on yields. That's one we really like to have in the mix. because of its age, it's a little more price points a little bit better on it too. So that's kind of the nice one to mix in that 101 day.
Does the look of it matter? Isn't it just the yield that matters?
It is, but you're sitting in a combine all day looking down at corn. It's a lot more fun to see a big, tall, healthy, leafy plant getting sucked into your combine than this little chunk of a plant with an ear on it. But as long as that ear is good, who cares? In our opinion, and that one never usually fails us, and it holds onto the ear. So the top of the stalk doesn't matter at that point.
All right, the next one is 5261, and I
50
see it says stalks and roots.
52,
So
yeah, 5261 is it came out long time ago. I mean, this one in 2475 LG that we'll talk about in a little bit. It's just been around for a long time, and it's just a Western South Dakota solid corn. Talked about Goss's wilt. It is not a Goss's wilt corn. I mean, that's definitely not one. If we know we have it or afraid of it, we steer clear of this one. But we had one of our yield trials this year, and it was out of 40 hybrids. It was second best. It's hung around for a long time for a reason, because it's never fallen off. It's never regressed. And guys know, especially the further west you push, lower populations for ground shows up. So we're really excited that DeKalb is willing to keep a hybrid like that in the lineup. That's pretty rare in this day and age with seed companies. They like to churn. They like to put new hybrids out there and take old ones out. This one has stayed in, and it doesn't appear like it's going to go away anytime soon. So we keep it in our lineup, not something we're planting the whole farm to, but something that's definitely in the mix.
All right, how about 10408?
Yeah, and this one is probably the most anticipated hybrid in our lineup going into next year. I hate to get too excited about something, because then that's when it usually something we don't foresee jumps up and bites us. But this one hasn't shown us that yet. We only saw it in test plots last year. Everywhere there was a dry land scenario. We don't have a ton of irrigation around here, so most of stuff we sell and we look at is dry land. That's where it excels. Super healthy plant, like noticeably healthy plant. You put it in a test plot, those 4 rows stand out. It stays greener longer. It stays intact longer. It withstands wind better. It's just a good agronomically sound product, and that's what I think. Then in turn, it shows up in the combine when you're combining it. Any plot we put it in of ours this year, it has not lost. It has been number one across the board. So from 104, that kind of just it fits our relative maturity, our growing season so well. Kind of both ways. If we want to take something out early wet, it works good, but it's something we don't have to worry about drying down in the fall if we want to go dry corn. So we're super excited. Again, Goss's wilt rating's high. It just keeps checking all the boxes. Its downfall is, again, like I talked about before, it's a VT4. And some of that, I feel, is why we're seeing the yield bump that we are, is because we are seeing these rootworm eggs lay in the ground and not hatch for a year. And so we're seeing some of these hybrids that don't have protection on the roots are getting some root feeding by rootworms, excuse me, and where this one has protection against it. So added cost because of that, and I think that'll be the reason why not everybody's planting all their farm to it, but it's one that boy, everything is pointing in the right direction for this one.
Perfect. All right, how about 10535? You said this one as well.
Yep, 10535, 10533 is its Smart Stack counterpart, Smart Stack Pro counterpart. So it's got the Smart Stack traits plus the VT4 RNAi technology. This one is just basically the 105-day version of 10135. They look similar. Their ears are similar. Big, blocky, fat, shorter ear, really deep kernels. Just continues to show up. Another one that's not maybe as strong, disease-wise, probably a little stronger in 10135, but one from a test weight, from a kernel depth. If you're going for high moisture corn or you're rolling corn, this is the type of kernel you want going through that roller mill. So if it's kind of where you need to be for your farm for maturity-wise. If you want to push maturities, I'm doing 10535. If you want to hold back in that 100-day range and not have to worry about corn drying down, then it's 10135. But they're literally they're extremely similar. One just takes a little bit longer to dry down.
Okay, all right. It looks like that's the last one we have access to, the DeKalb lineup, but those are the ones that.
Yeah,
100.
Ones. Yep, there's a good 108, good 109. There's 110 in there as well. Those are obviously a little more niche type products there. They have a pretty vast lineup. Again, top to bottom, I think one of our strongest portfolios of seed we have here to offer. A lot more than that, but those are definitely the ones to highlight.
Perfect. All right, then let's move into LGE. So the first one I have marked is the fan favorite in this area, 2475.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think you can talk seed corn in South Central South Dakota without mentioning 2475. A lot like 5261. I think this one was commercialized in 2004, so which is just unheard of in seed corn to have something like that to hang around for that long. There's a reason for it. super drought. I mean, it's like drought resistant. I'd go that far. I mean, I've seen this corn planted in with the Badlands in the background type soil, type Western movement. A little bit longer than a 90. It's tagged as a 96 day. It's maybe more like a 98 day, but not a big plant. Puts all of its groceries into the year like some of these other ones. You would think a Western drought hardy corn we would call super flex ear. I guess that's one thing we haven't really talked about yet is ear flex. And everyone would say, well, we're lower populations, we want ear flex. This one is probably the most determinate ear we have. And I say that as a good thing, because if it rains 2 inches in the summer, it's going to have the same size ear. It's always going to put on that same size, long, skinny ear, but whatever it's got to do, it's going to make that ear. It seems like where it flexes, it's one of the few that still have the ability to truly double ear and to put on a second ear. So we like this one at low populations. We're talking sub 20,000. If you get the rain, it's going to put 2 ears on, and that's where you start to pick up yield. And I've seen this thing run 150, 160 at times 200. I mean, it's got the potential to do it, but it's one we're definitely putting in situations where the ground's tough, lighter soil. We're not sure, the weather outlook doesn't look good, or think it's going to be a dry summer. We just want something that's going to go in and make corn, not a silage product, not anything else. We were just trying to make good dry corn. This is one to do it. It's starting to show its age. I think some of these other genetics are finally starting to pick up and meet it, but we haven't seen anything beat it consistently year in and year out when rainfall is very limited. So it's an old dog. It's hardy. It's a double pro or a straight roundup. It still comes in as a straight roundup. So price point wise, it's really lucrative, and it's one that it's like a family member now. If it goes, you might have to have a funeral for it, because it's been around a long time.
Did you say that it came out in 2004? That's over 20
2004.
years old. Wow.
Yep. Like I said, it's unheard of in the corn industry, but she's been around a long time. To throw a little throwback, Producers Hybrids days, the guys that used to plant Producers Hybrids, this is 5623. And that was like a family member to a lot of people. Yep, its reputation precedes it, and it's never changed, never let us down yet.
I wrote a whole song about 5623 once. What a good time in my life. All right, next 46C85.
Yeah, and this is one that LG's kind of tabbing as that next 2475. We've heard that before. That's why we want to test it. We want to see it. We had a little bit of it out last year in the western part of our market. Like the looks of it, but it's one that kind of came out excelling as low populations, good flex year, semi-flex year to it, little healthier plant, healthier stock. So, those are things we like to see as we move west, a little more robust plant than 2475 is, but another one that's going to fit that same acre as what 2475 is. So that's one we're excited, that we're hopeful that maybe it's going to run right with 2475, but still testing. It's new, but we like the looks of it so far.
All right. How about 51C62?
Yep. This one I would put in the same category as 10135. So really like the plant health of this one. It's got good stay green. It's longer, slender ear type than what 10135 is, but from a yield standpoint, it's got room to run. It's got a high ceiling on it. Bigger, taller plant, something that if it needs to be cut for silage, I think is going to turn out pretty decent. But we really like it from its yield capabilities. There's a genetic, or the female, the side of the genetics, and we've seen pop up in different hybrids that we'll talk about here. All have really good characteristics of a tall, healthy, high yield type plant. One that you're going to want to get out and get early. We don't want to let this one stand too long. It's one that shank strength we start to worry about a little bit. This one not as much as maybe some others, but it's one that we don't want to let stand too long. It's just got a good size ear in it, and want to make sure that gets in the combines. But it's at a strong year in and year out. It's 3 years ago, I think that one came out with some pretty high hopes, and it's lived up to its expectations so far.
And just for, maybe everybody knows this, but clarity for LG, it looks like we had 50 to the first two numbers.
50 DeKalb. Yep, DeKalb is the same way. So you add 50 to the first two, you get your relative maturity. So DeKalb has used up all their numbers. So now their new numbering system is straightforward. So 10135 is 101 day. 10535 is 105 days. So you'll see as new products start to rotate in and old ones start to rotate out, the plus 50 will go away, and it'll just be the maturity in the number. But LGS is all add 50 to get the maturity.
All right, so to continue on then, the next one would be 52C90.
Yep, 102 day, and this one is completely unique in their lineup from a genetic standpoint. That's why we really liked it, because it gives us some genetic diversity, because we keep using the same hybrids with the same female as we go from 98 to 109. So we like to have some genetic diversity in there, and that's what 52C90 gives us. again, like 10408 that we talked about earlier with DeKalb, its plant healthiness, plant robustness stands out, standing next to other ones. It's just a really good looking, pretty corn. That's not always the first year we saw it. It's like, well, it's just because it's pretty doesn't mean it's going to yield well, but it's lived up to that. So we like it from a plant health standpoint. Its intactness, its standability is super strong. And combine and plots this fall, it just kept showing up again and again and again in our top ones. So we like it as kind of a genetic diverse piece and one that's got a lot of yield potential to it.
All right, how about 53C44?
Yep. So another cousin of 51C62. Again, that same female that popped up. Uh, this one came out kind of billed as the low population Western moving version of that. So, and it's that's what we feel it is. Maybe one that's not gonna stand out and win the farm every year. But we kind of compare it to 5192 DeKalb. It's just steady and strong the last couple of years that we've had it. We really like it. Again, another one you don't want to let stand in the field too long. So as long as you get out and get it when it's ready to go, you'll be pretty happy with what's coming in the grain tank, especially in a lower population environment. That's where we want to see that one placed. Is somewhere we're pulling back into yield, a little tougher soil, where maybe our yield goal and expectation isn't as high. That's one that's going to top the expectations in that environment.
All right, and it looks like the last one for LG I have marked here is 59C72.
Yeah, and this is, if we had to pick favorites, this is probably the favorite of ours out of LG's lineup, year in and year out. So it comes as a double pro above ground only traits or a Duracade Viptera, which again is a different trait platform with the Duracade Viptera, so for earworm and rootworm. So it kind of gives us that genetic difference, trait difference that we can rotate in and out of these corn acres if we need to. With that comes a little bit differences in maturity. So if you add 52, it's 109 day. The VT2 we call 106 day is how we place it, is as 106 day. And pretty good sized plant. We've seen it in lighter ground, moving west, and heavier gumbo dirt, moving north and east, and with similar results. So it's one that's really good dual purpose silage, wet corn, earlage, works extremely well in that. And then once it gets down to dry corn, it still shows up as one of our top ones. Very consistent, very proven, been around a long time. When they brought the Duracade Viptera version in, that gave us the resistance to Liberty as well. So it gives us some differences in herbicide tolerances that not all LG and DeKalb has. None of DeKalb has it besides their Smart Stacks. And LG's lineup needs to have that Duracade Viptera to bring the Liberty tolerance onto. So if you want some ability to spray some different chemicals, Duracade Viptera version gives us that without the extreme high cost of what we typically see a Smart Stacks Pro bag at. So we get our rootworm protection, we get a Liberty tolerance in that, and then it kind of pushes our day length a little bit. Somebody going for wet corn or earlage, this is definitely probably the first one we pull off the pile.
Anything else about LG corn?
Not really. Again, I mean, they have a pretty long, robust lineup, but these are definitely the ones that we're going to steer to. They are starting to inject some new ones that we're excited about, particularly on the shorter side of things. So the sub 100 day that we're looking at, we're kind of excited to bring in. But yeah, those are definitely the ones that we've seen, we've planted, and we really like.
All right. Now let's move into Golden Harvest. So the first one I have marked is the 102 day 02K39.
Yep, and this year's kind of its swan song. It's its last year, and after this, it'll be going away. So it's been around a long time. It's a drought hardy. Seen it in just some really tough, everything working against it scenarios, and this one shows up from a yield standpoint. So kind of a 2475-ish style of a plant, just in 102 day that we really like. It's a Duracade, so it does work corn on corn. Price pretty nicely. That we can kind of put in the mix and bring down the price of corn is another reason we really like it. But it is its last year, so we're trying not to fall in love with it too much. But it's definitely still here as a good option as we move into tougher ground.
So the D at the end must mean Duracade. Okay.
D at the end means Duracade, or DV is Duracade Viptera.
Got it. All right. So the next one is 03U08.
Yep, this one is new. The U is the U series. A little bit newer in Golden Harvest lineup, and we've seen kind of a step up in yield potential with these U series hybrids. And this is one that's not very tall. It's a very short, for 103 day, it's a very short plant. One that, again, I think it excels in a little tougher ground, but I have seen it next to, we planted it on our own farm next to 10135, the old 5525 LG that's kind of been their standby, and we kind of tested it against that. that too is going away is why we didn't bring it up. And it held well in a 150 plus yield environment. So I think it's got room to push, but it can stand pretty well in a lower yield environments. But again, it's one that you just kind of have to adjust your eye a little bit when you're walking through it because it's head high. It's not a very tall plant.
Why are they breeding shorter plants, in your opinion?
I think a lot of it somewhat is sunlight capture. There's a lot of talk about that, getting the sunlight to penetrate further down into the canopy, so the lower leaves are bringing in more sunlight and kind of feeding that whole plant. The other part of it we see is the smaller the plant is, the less plant we have to feed, the more we can feed an ear. It brings in some drought tolerance to it. So it kind of plays against us too, especially in lower pops and guys that have planted in central South Dakota know this well, that a shorter plant usually means a shorter ear. And if you got to put that corn head on the ground to go get the ear, and this one is probably not exempt from that, that ear placement's usually a little bit lower and makes it a little bit more difficult to combine, and everybody's combined corn in the snow before. So that's a watch out for that one for sure. Overall, we really like the look of it.
Okay. All right. The next one I have is 01U74AA. What's that?
Yep. So that is their VT2 version. Mm-hmm. They're above ground traits, so they're Agrossure above ground, Agrossure above A. Mm-hmm. Traits. So that, again, like we talked with the VT4s or the Smart Stacks, things like that, if we're not going corn on corn, especially if we're in a 3-year rotation, corn, beans, wheat, that kind of rotation, we don't feel there's any need to put rootworm traits on it. The more traits equals more protection equals more potential yield drag because of it. So you're protecting against something, you're not adding something. So if we can pull that rootworm trait out of it, A, it lowers cost, B, it doesn't strain the plant as much as it needs to. So that's where I think 01 really started to pop and show for us. From their Golden Harvest lineup, it seems to be that one is their kind of top tier yielding style plant. It's 101 days, so it kind of fits that mid-maturity for us. Good ear flex to it. Seems like it likes lower or a little bit higher populations. It can kind of maneuver and move with that. So it's new. It was new to us last year. So I mean, we still want to walk before we run with it. And again, from a pricing standpoint, we like the looks of it.
Perfect. All right. How about 11V76?
Yeah, and I put this one on there from a drought hardiness standpoint. It's tough to beat. It's been around a long time. It's shown itself. I've talked to guys that have planted at East River that love it, over here West River that love it. But it's one that's going to fit that wet corn silage style. This is not one you're going to want to plant and expect it to be dry in the fall. You get a really hot fall like we've had the past couple of years, yeah, you're going to get it to dry down. But we definitely want to place this one where we know we're going to take that corn out early. Then it has a lot of potential to really run in that scenario. So wet corn, guys, that's definitely one to look at.
All right, how about 00A97?
Yeah, so this one, it's an artesian. Artesian, it's a marketing term. Don't get me wrong, but it is identified as having more natural drought tolerance than other hybrids. So they realize that from a genetic standpoint, they tagged the artesian name on it. So that kind of caught our eye. Looking at it, a little more of a determinate ear type than maybe we like to see in a lower population standpoint. But I mean, we've seen it planted down to 20,000 and didn't seem to have, it's still pushed above expectations for yield in that environment. So, but it is one I think if you're going to plant it, you probably better plan on bumping it up a couple thousand in population. But it caught our eye looking at it again. Last year was the first year we saw it out in the field, and it's definitely one we're going to be looking at again.
All right, now looks like we move into some Enogen hybrids. So
yep.
Maybe first talk a little bit about like what Enogen is, the difference here, why someone would want
so
Enogen.
We won't spend too long on Enogen. Enogen's a really intriguing platform for us. So what Enogen is it's incorporated the alpha amylase enzyme into the corn kernel. So it's in the kernel of corn. And what alpha amylase does is it breaks down the starches in corn and turns them into sugars a lot easier. So think about it. It came out for the ethanol market. So the ethanol market has to add in this alpha amylase enzyme to get that slurry of corn mush to move through their plant. So instead of them adding it at the plant, it's added right there in the corn. The problem with that is you can't let that corn then go into food grade markets. So it's not something that we can take and dump at the elevator. This is something that has to be going to, and I'll talk about in a sec why it's a feedlot corn for us versus an ethanol, but it's got to go to an ethanol plant or it's got to go to a feedlot. The thing they found with ethanol is, yes, they need the alpha amylase enzyme, but there's other enzymes that they're putting into that as well. And a lot of them enzyme pieces that they're putting in there all have the alpha amylase in it already. So from an ethanol standpoint, it kind of it adjusted their system. If all of the corn that ethanol plant brought in was Enogen, they could make it work. But when you're trying to plug in some of this Enogen corn, they couldn't get it to work as easily. So then they moved it over and dumped it at a feedlot and went, holy smokes, we're getting some feed efficiency gains. Cattle aren't having to eat as much to be able to grow. So it really pops. So that's for us, it's a feedlot perspective type of corn. So for silage, wet corn, piling, even if you're grinding and feeding dry corn, that's where it works really well. So it's very intriguing, but it fits a very specific operator. If it's somebody that's growing all the corn that they grow, it's definitely going to go into their cattle. No worries about this, but it's one that we take the option completely off the table to take to the elevator. So it's not one that everybody can plant, but if you're going into a feed market, especially silage, it's going to ensile a lot better, and we'll see that quality maintained. We'll see that quality quicker in that silage pile with Enogen corn. So we really like it. It's intriguing, but it's got a few caveats with it that keeps it very specific to who gets it. But we had quite a bit of it out last year, and we didn't really see any big yield drags with it or anything, and then we're getting that up to 5% feed efficiency with it. So it's definitely one, if you're looking to grow corn for cattle feed, there's not an extra cost to it. It's actually a pretty competitively priced product. And if you know you're going into cattle feed or into silage, it's definitely one we're going to look at. And a lot of the corns like that 11 V76 that we just got done talking about, that comes as an Enogen corn as well. So that's one to look at for feed.
So then what's the two that you have marked here, 107C7 and 111V7 differences?
Yep. So from our trials, I think 107C1 seems to be a little bit taller, turned out a little bit more. 111V7, we obviously know what its drought hardiness is and drought tolerance is. There again, it kind of plays into the game of, do you want a longer day or a little bit shorter day? They have a 105 day that worked really well too. So it kind of depends on the operation, how you want to place that corn, when you plant, et cetera, but not as many options to choose from, or we kind of narrowed that one down to 2 or 3 to make it simple. But we picked them out for drought hardiness and then tonnage ability.
All right, so I think that's what I have for corn, but I know that you've also been looking at potentially Brevant as well. What's that look like? Anything there?
Yep. Yeah, we have. We're approached by Brevant a couple years ago and started looking at their corn. And the reason we were intrigued by it is it gives us that extra, again, I talked about genetic diversity. It's a whole new platform, program, genetic book for us to look into. So we were like, and then it gives us a different trait platform as well. So Power Core and Vorseed come out of the Brevant lineup, and so we started interjecting it, started testing it, and we picked out, there's a 98 day, there's a 101 day, and a 104 day. We really like the looks of. They just keep showing up every time we put them into a yield trial, every time we put them into a side by side. They just keep coming to the top. One thing we like about Brevant is they select their corn with agronomic traits first. So it's got to stand well, it's got to have disease tolerance, it's got to have a lot of those things that keep that corn plant intact, and not just some racehorse hybrid that's going to win a yield test plot in a good year. They want something that's going to stand in year out. So we think we found it. Like I said, it gives us a little bit of diversity off of maybe the Bayer traits or the Bayer or LG's genetics, and it kind of put in. So going to continue looking at them, continue testing those. But so far, we really like the looks of them.
Awesome. All right. Well, then let's jump to soybeans. So when it comes to soybeans, what are your thoughts? Looks like we have LG 2685. Man, I can't read. 2685.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with soybeans. Yes, there's variety differences and different things and whatnot, but let's face it. If it rains in August, any bean that we pick out of any of our company's lineups, I mean, there's beans that definitely won't work in this part of the world, no question. That's why the only ones we offer, we know we're going to work, and I think our competitors will say the same thing. So we kind of need to look at a couple different scenarios of, are you going to plant winter wheat behind your soybeans? If you are, well, then maybe we don't push the longer maturity. Maybe we want to get them soybeans out a little sooner to give you some more time to plant winter wheat. What kind of trait platform do you want? We have believed in and are sticking with the Extend platform. We believe in what dicamba does for our weeds out here, especially kochia. And so we think pairing dicamba with Roundup and Liberty in a soybean is going to work to our growers' benefit. And so that's the trait platform we stuck with. We have Enlist options available to us. Another reason we brought on Brevant is if dicamba trait platform was going to go completely away and everything was going to go to Enlist, we really wanted their beans at our disposal. So there are a few people that are on the Enlist platform, and we definitely have the beans to fit that, but we're true believers in the Extend platform and are going to stick with it. So that's kind of the things we look at. Are you drilling it or are you planting it in 30-inch rows? That gives us a little bit of difference there. But at the end of the day, if it rains in August, they're going to be good. If it doesn't rain in August, they're going to struggle. That's the glory of growing beans in this part of the world. So we feel the ones we picked out, throw a dart, hit one, you're going to have good success with it.
Yes. So you have options from LG, Asgrow, and Golden
L-
Harvest, correct?
LG has grown Golden Harvest. Golden Harvest from a volume standpoint is probably the most, Syngenta's has a great reputation for really good soybean genetics. They have for a long, long time. So we really like the looks of those, but there's some that we're pulling from LG and Asgrow that I think fit a few things that we want to do around here. So like the 2685s, they're new this year. So a lot of people planted 2554s for a lot of years, a 2.5. And that's kind of our maturity range, 2.0 to 3.0 around here gets a lion's share of it. So they're kind of right in the middle. That good. You want to use more of the growing season, but you also don't want to wait to harvest them type deals. So that's where 2685s fits really well. All their testing, all the test plot data they have that they brought to us, seems like that one has a really high potential when given everything that goes right. They have a really high yield potential. The other thing we look at, and we put a lot of effort into finding soybeans that are good against IDC or iron deficiency chlorosis, and they have to have good IDC to get into our lineup, especially our heavier wet soils. A cool wet spring ties up that iron, and we see green beans turn yellow pretty quick, and that can be pretty detrimental to yield. So we have to have good IDC. This one does it. So that it really stuck out to us. Having good IDC and then good yield potential. So if you're on that mid-range, that mid 2.0 group, we feel this one's going to be kind of our go-to for that.
The Asgrow beans.
Yep. So 27 XF3s, again, super strong on IDC, super strong on plant health, bigger bushier bean. You're putting in 30-inch rows. I think this one's going to fit that one really well. It's a pretty long 2.7, so it's one that you need to have the mindset of, I'm planting a long bean, even though it says a 2.7. It's probably like a 2.8, 2.9 style bean for harvestability. Out of their lineup, it's hard. For whatever reason, it seems hard to find good IDC tolerance in a Group 2 soybean. So again, the ones that stick out with good IDC, they usually rise to the top, and then it backs it up with really good yield potential as well. Been planted for a couple of years and had really good success. We really like it kind of in that mid to later range. Or wanting to push longer maturity, but you don't want to put all your long maturity into one variety. We like this one in the mix.
All right, and then what about the Golden Harvest 2925?
Yep. So that's definitely one we're going to start with. You're going to start early, plant early. Even, I've had guys that planted winter wheat behind this. So it's not something that's going to you have to combine in November or something like that. But it's if you're going to use that full growing season, especially if we can grow it, start early and plant it early, then we're really getting a long growing season, because soybeans are obviously dependent on sunlight, or day length is when they start to go into reproductive mode and when they start to shut down and dry down. So the earlier we can plant the beans, the better, especially now with their seed treatments and other things. Genetics are starting to be able to tolerate cooler soils, cooler environments earlier. So we can plant it earlier, then we back it up late on the late side with the 2.9. It's really getting a full, and just give that plant more time to grow, more pods to put on it, and this one does that. Not a super tall plant, but still taller than average. One that if I'm going through an air seeder, 10, 15-inch row, 20-inch row type deals, this one works really well for that scenario. But one that can, if you can let it express in a 30-inch row, it'll try to fill the gap too. So it works both ways there. Soybeans are kind of funny like that. They will compensate to their environment for the most part. Some do it a little bit better than others. But that's definitely one we're going to start, starting early May, maybe even late April if the weather and the season lets us. We're going to start with 2925.
So the ones I had marked on my sheet, I think the only other thing that I want to ask about is seed treatment too, because that's obviously part of this as well.
Yep, there's a couple other soybeans I do want to hit on. 2313 Golden Harvest. They say it's it's kind of like the 27 XF3s I talked about with Asgrow. It says it's a 2.3, but it's like a 2.4 or 2.5. So I mean, you're not planting an early soybean, even though it looks and feels like I'm planting a 2.3. So I'm on the earlier side. It's definitely on the long side of a 2.3. Love the bush type of it. I saw a lot of it in 30-inch rows. I mean, we're hitting the tips of the next row, so we're covering the rows nice. It's one that if we start to get late into the season, like this year, it started raining in mid-May, and we didn't get back to the field till June, so I had a lot of guys switch to the beans, and that was a pretty good decision. Those beans excelled really well, handled our environment well. Again, your IDC is good, all of that. So like to look some not an overly tall bean, so it stays a little more compact. So again, we're feeding pods instead of plant, and that's what we really like about that one. So that one's going to be a big one for us in that kind of mid to shorter maturity range. And then 21 XFO Asgrow. So if you're in a scenario where I have to get them beans off early, for whatever reason, you need to spread manure, you need to plant wheat, or you want to plant triticale early or something, you might give up some yield potential going to a 2.1, but it's going to give you some options around harvest time to do some different things. And that's where 21 XFO, just a good, hardy, defensive style bean that fits our world pretty good. And again, being just like the corn, you want to talk about a 1.5, we got a whole lineup of one group ones we need to talk about too. It's just not as popular around here.
Yes, so. And then as far as seed treatment, I mean, to make decisions on that today, of course, but I do think it's important people know what we have available here.
Yep, and it's definitely something to start considering and looking at as we go into next year, because planting time is a really unique time where we can put some things into that plant on that seed to be able to get some benefits as we go throughout the season, and it's really easy to do. So we look at things. The talc graphite replacement has come a very popular mechanism for delivering a lot of things on the seed, and so we've looked at a lot of different ones. We've tested a lot of different ones. One we've really liked the looks of, and one we're moving forward with is called BioBoost. That comes from BW Fusions. It's actually a soybean dust. If you're familiar with the marketing name Dust, that's what they use, because talc and graphite is kind of a deadly environment for a biological to live in, and that's what BioBoost is. It's got some micronutrients with it, but it's also got some Bavaria bassiana biological that helps expand that root zone, get that root zone to exudate more and to get larger, so it can bring in more nutrients and other things. And you're putting it right there on the seed as a replacement to your talc and or graphite. So we're pretty excited about that. From a corn standpoint or a milo standpoint, it works well for that too. So if you put it into milo, its per acre cost is very minimal. Corn, you're adding a little bit of cost to it, but again, it's a perfect time to get some of those biologicals right around that seed as you're planting it, easy to apply, easy to use, and then you're not sucking in talc and graphite when you're filling your planter, which is kind of nice. So it's not that super dusty like we're used to, but it still gives us some flowability benefits as well as some biology benefits as well. So that's definitely what we're looking at. They have a soybean one as well if you want to get that Bavaria bassiana. That strain works in soybeans as well. So they have one that works there, but we also use BW's on-seed liquid seed treatment for our inoculant. We replaced our inoculant with that last year, and we really like the looks of it, because not only are we getting the rhizobia bacteria to help our soybean roots nodulate, but again, we're getting that 401 family of biologicals that's going to help soil break down, release some phosphorus right around that seed, so the roots can get to it right away. And there's 5 or 6 different biological strains in that inoculant seed treatment that we're going to put on. So without a doubt, we would highly recommend every bean that leaves this place at least has that on it. And then we also have your standard fungicide and insecticide, and we think that's really important, especially as we go earlier. And we're pushing these soybeans planting dates earlier, seeing a lot of good yield response from it. But we're planting in a cooler, hopefully wetter soils, early May, like I said, maybe even late April. We definitely think a fungicide seed treatment is a must, and it's just a good insurance policy for you to protect that seed from seedling-borne diseases, to get that seed up out of the ground and going. And then the insecticide piece not only protects the seed from soil-bound insects and worms chewing on that seed, but then that early plant, so the early stages of that plant is going to suck in that insecticide, and it's going to have some resistance to that first usually onset of bean leaf beetles. So it gives us some protection above ground as well as below ground. Again, from a cost per acre standpoint, it's not a big expense. It gives us a really good insurance policy to protect against some early seedling diseases, and gives us protection to make sure we're off to a great start. So with our new seed treating facility, it's in and out and really fast, and we can get that done in a really quick order. So when it comes time to plant soybeans, we're usually on the run in a hurry because it's time to move. We're done with corn and we need to go. We can get people in and out of here pretty quickly with that and get the stuff on their seed again as it's going in the ground.
We're talking about seed today and seed treatment, but this fall and then heading into spring before planting as well, obviously we do have all the crop protection products here too. And so is there anything that people need to be thinking about yet this fall before they start planting this spring that we can help them with?
Yeah, we're still big advocates on pre-planning and preparation and getting a plan in place. I think for whatever reason, this part of the world, and we are just as guilty of it as anybody. Don't get me wrong when it comes to planting, but it just feels like we're making those decisions on the fly, on the go as we're planting. And we have this period now that hopefully we're getting done with harvest. The calves are weaned. We're not calving yet. And it gets dark at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm pretty sure. So we have time now. I mean, this is the time to just start putting a plan in place. So now we're starting to look at what are we going to do for a soybean pre or a corn pre. can we put on something yet even this fall, as far as a fall Valor or generic Valor, or even some atrazine to go down on some fields this fall to get a jump start and a head start on some of those early weeds, and getting that plan in place. Locking in some prices. The earlier you buy things, the cheaper they are. There's no way around it. But getting that plan in place, now is the time to start looking at that. We have a couple different methodologies and options. We're true believers in a lot of branded chemicals. Obviously, generic chemicals have their place, and we use them where they're appropriate and where they fit. But generics give us a little more risk too, as well. Don't get me wrong. So that's what I'd love to start looking at and sitting down with folks. Let's go field by field. Let's make a plan. Let's make plan B too, because we know plans change in the spring when things happen. But if we can make that plan, because the earlier we can get out there with these pre's, the earlier we can get out there and plant, the earlier we can be prepared, the better our crop has at success. Because as we all know, we blink and it goes from April 15th to June 15th, and we get 2 weeks of rain in there and it throws it all out. So if we got a plan in place, we know what we're doing, we know what that field's going to get planted to, we know what to tell the sprayer man to spray there. It's in, it's done. We can get that crop in and move on to bigger and better things. Now's the time to prep, and we're ready to sit down and do that.
Since I have you talking about other things outside of seed too, just the last one, how about anything with equipment and precision planting? Because I know that now's the time to be, I know we're all maybe done with our equipment now that we're getting done with harvest, but it's actually the best time to think about what we're going to do prior to spring.
It is, and I've honestly seen, and I know we're precision planting dealers, so it sounds like I'm being a salesman right now, but the number one thing that I've seen be detrimental to yield or sticks out the most as a detriment to yield is stand placement and stand quality. Erratic stands, poor seed spacing, things like that can take you down 20 bushel faster than anything else, in my opinion. Wintertime is a great time. We have the heated shop. We have a guy here that knows more. He forgets more about equipment than I know, in Bruce. So we're here. We can do it. Now's the time when you're not on the gun. You're not wanting to plant. And the planter's sitting here in our shop ready to go. Let's get that planter in. Let's get it looked over. Let's get some things, even if it's just wear points and wear parts that we need to replace, parallel arms, closing wheels, things like that. There's a lot of neat things we can do, from electric drives or hydraulic downforce, all things that we feel really important to getting a good stand. Also, we're all realizing to look at the commodity markets we're in, everything else. Do we need to do all these extra things to a planter? Or is it as justifiable this year as it was 2-3 years ago? Maybe not. But regardless, corn could be $1, and it's always justifiable to get your planter in shape so it's at least spacing and placing that seed where it needs to be, whether it's a chain drive, a vacuum planter, or a souped up electric hydraulic downforce, all that stuff. We need to look that over, bring it in, and fix what needs fixed and potentially improve what needs improved on. And so that's definitely something we can do. And the list is endless on the things you can do to a planter, but we kind of feel we have the 2 or 3 basic things that if you did that, I think you're setting yourself up for success. And again, wintertime is a great time. Pull your planter out of your shed, park it in our shed, and let Bruce go to work on it. So it's definitely time to look at that. They've also came out with some newer things, like from a precision planting standpoint. Its downfall was I needed a precision planting monitor in my tractor. So it's a secondary monitor. It's the best monitor on the market, we feel, for visibility, for ease of use, all that stuff. But it's just another monitor in the planter, right? And then I have a green planter and a green tractor, and they talk to each other. I'll just use that one. So the nice part they came out with is now they have ISOBUS connectivity. So you can have precision planting units and drives and things like that on your planter, and it's going to run through your tractor's monitor. So that was something we got really excited about seeing, and opens up a lot of possibilities for folks that again, their tractor and planter pair up. So this just makes it, we feel, even better, and some different things there. Bruce is your man. Like I said, he can talk over your head about equipment all day long, and he's the guy to talk to about it.
Anything else?
Well, it is. One thing I will say, since it's after October 1st and before March 15th, this is Rosal season 2. So prairie dogs have yet to have a bad year that I can, in recent memory. It seems like they have a better year the longer they go. But now's the time to get out. The grass is brown. The grass is dead. Prairie dogs are looking for something to eat. Give them something to eat that's not going to let them live any longer. So, but Rosal is confined to a season. That's why I bring it up, is because now's the time to go after it. Before it snows, before everything else, it's prime time. Get prairie dogs under control, because they can be detrimental, and you're a better neighbor if you control your prairie dogs. I know.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right. Well, that's enough for today.